So look here, they've actually got onto the road sign topic now. And there's this story from Sky News saying that within the Metropolitan Police area, hundreds of drivers are said to have been wrongly fined after a fake 50 mile an hour was placed in a 40 mile an hour speed zone. But the Metropolitan Police has said the fines are still within the law. Well, the fines aren't within the law when the police officer doesn't understand how the law's written, and the evidence, well, he doesn't want to understand how it's written, and he doesn't care. All he wants to do is give fines. And when he's done that extensively and the fines are in question, he really, really, really doesn't want to be proved wrong, because it undoes all his work and it makes him look bad and his force and all the work the force has done. And the last thing the police like is looking bad. So they're going to vehemently deny it based on that. Then there's this other point. We don't know who's put this particular sign here. This particular one might have been put here by some protesters or activists, but if it was found to be by the council, we've already done an investigation and found out road signage was put wrongly, incorrectly and misleading at multiple sites all around England. And whether the police want to argue whether the fines are lawful or not is a different subject to, can the signs mislead and do the signs mislead? Because if the answer to the question is yes, they can mislead and yes, they do mislead, well, then you ask, well, are there more of them? And if the answer is yes, there are more of them that are wrong. So this sign is definitely not right. It's definitely wrong. It definitely exists, right? So the police can't deny that. All they're talking about is whether the fines are valid or not. The question is, does or can the sign mislead or misinform drivers, right? Now, regardless of whether that invalidates the fines or not, I don't care. Because if you say that it does or can mislead the drivers, right, then if you can ask a question, well, are there more examples and instances of this? And yes, there are. And who's responsible? And if it was the council who placed them and the police are meant to be inspecting them, then you say, well, regardless of whether the police think the fines are lawful or not, the money, the question is, can and did wrong signs mislead drivers? And the question is, if so, then if we can agree, yes, it can and does mislead drivers, right, we can say that drivers have been misled. And if they've done that at multiple places and multiple sites, right, was it done with an intent to mislead the drivers? You could, if you say yes, drivers were misled, right, and yes, it was misleading, and there was an intention behind it to mislead, then someone did that on purpose, and someone misled the drivers. Now, that is a separate matter, because then you can say some people acted to mislead drivers and plan it. And then you can have someone guilty of that. You can have someone guilty of planning to mislead drivers and misleading them, and you can prosecute them for that. And that doesn't matter whether the fines are valid or not. You can say, oh, well, you know, if the police chief Rowley wants to claim, well, they might have been misled, the signs might have been wrong, well, yeah, maybe it can mislead them, maybe some of them were misled, but they still broke the law, and we're not going to give them the fines back, the fines were valid, but someone still is guilty of misleading them, and we can still agree that they were misled. And if someone planned that, then they're a criminal. So, and if the police chief is responsible for organising it, the speed awareness courses, and by the way, no one gets on these speed awareness courses without the police chief agreeing to it. Even if you go to court, you can't get on a special speed course either without the police chief agreeing to it, because I've been on one. And I was in court when they had to wait for him to give permission, right? It's all under his orchestration, right? And he's got inspectors going out every site that they enforce with a speed limit has to be checked by the police, and they're meant to check whether the council have put the signs out there properly or not lawful. And if they don't report them, then they are seriously aiding and abetting the council or turning the blind eye. Now, I don't care whether Rowley thinks the fines should be returned or not, or whether the fines are lawful or not, because that can be dealt with separately. What Rowley is basically saying is, okay, that sign's illegal. Well, if the sign's got the wrong number on it, Rowley must be purely retarded to claim that reading a number that is not the right number does not misinform you wrongly of the number. Because then, if you held up a letter A to Rowley when it's supposed to be a B, and you say, what letter is it? And he says C, then he's wrong. If you hold up a letter A and you say, what letter is this? And he says A, then he's right. If someone holds up the number 6 and they ask what number it is and someone says 7, right, it's wrong. Now, Rowley, unless he's a pure liar, an absolute, complete Puritan liar, cannot say that that is a correct number. So how can it correctly inform someone of a speed when it is the wrong speed? It can't. Now, who put the sign there? The question is, did they do it on a purpose with an intention behind doing it? And have they done it at more than one place? And if they have, then there's an intention to mislead people is a crime. It's a criminal offence and it's strategic. Now, to be honest, for me, I believe, well, I know the fines aren't lawful because how Rowley's interpreting the road signs manual and how Rowley's interpreting the legislation is, it says that it's illegal, but Rowley wants to interpret it as a way is in order to make it lawful, so his fine's illegal. It's an interpretation that can be argued either way, depending on whether you want the fine to be legal or not legal, and that's what you pay a lawyer for. But for me now, it's beyond the road signs. There's no doubt that the road signs were planned, the road signs were strategic, and the road signs were done with intention, and the fines were unlawful. But the fines aren't unlawful anymore for the road signage because, well, what I mean to say is the illegal road signage does make the fines unlawful, contrary to what Rowley thinks, but that's not going to be the thing that gets everyone's fines back. It's beyond the road signs now. I know the road signs are illegal, but it doesn't matter whether Rowley thinks that they're lawful or not, because the notices of intended prosecution are all unlawful. On the whole country, for every notice of intended prosecution with a conditional offer in this country that has been issued under the authority of a police chief officer is illegal and criminal. And he can eat that from his breakfast and do what he wants with it, because it is unlawfully forcing information from people and getting them to confess to a crime without a fair trial and under the reward and promise of a lower fine if they pay the fine within a certain time and confess. Otherwise, they have to go to court, and that's illegal. It's illegal to the 1689 claim of right and to every oath of every justice of council and justice of court, justice of every council that has issued fines, and every court that has issued fines, and every police officer who's taken an oath in this country has broken the law. And it doesn't matter about the road signs anymore, because it's a corrupt system, and the people who planned this fast-track fine system to scoop fines up, I think it might have been John Major, because I know that they were 1990 or 91, I think they put the first camera on London Bridge, but there's some older looking ones around Hyde in Manchester, around that sort of area. But they look very, very old-fashioned style ones, but they must not be, I don't know if they can be older than that London Bridge one. There's one of the first ones is on one of the central London roads. I don't know if it's London Bridge or around there, but I drew some connections to the Robin Hood Prince of Thieves film, because it was around the same time when he goes, "This is our river, and anyone who wishes to cross it must pay a tax." when he has that fight with Little John on the river. It was around that time. So it doesn't matter. The argument is beyond the road signs now. The argument is way, way, way beyond the road signs, and it has to be an argument. I don't think it can be dealt with by the in court, because you're looking at all of the judges in England and all of the police chief officers, and you're looking at possibly all of the council chairmen as well, who've issued all these fines, possibly even some of the parking ones and bus lane ones as well, where they force you to give information. You see, they made a law. In law, you've got the right to remain silent, but the government put various instruments and acts through where for driving offences, you'll be treated different to all other legal processes and procedures. For driving offences, you can't remain silent. We'll force you to talk, and unfortunately, you can have, even though the House of Commons claims that, MPs can make up what laws they want, they actually can't, because if it is in a contradiction to statute law and is not compatible with statute law, then the legislation is illegal and unlawful. It's wrong, and I don't think that this can be dealt with in any magistrate's court or a county court. I don't think it can possibly be dealt with in the Crown Court anymore. And this is why I petitioned government over it. The reason that we did the petition campaign to House of Commons is because it involved all counties. It's a national matter. It's not for one matter to be dealt with in one county, because then that court hasn't got the jurisdiction to make an order for the whole country unless it refers the matter to higher and higher and higher. And what's the point in doing that when you just petition House of Commons because you want a resolution or whatever? But whether it's in the Supreme Court or not, it is a matter for the Judicial Conduct Investigation Office, because it involves the whole issue now centres, for me, it's beyond like on site. It's beyond like just these road signs that, and it's clear now that all of the fines are unlawful because of violation of subversion of the liberties and freedoms of the realm. It falls under subversion of freedom and liberties of the realm under the Bill of Rights and the Claim of Right, 1689. That's what it falls under: evil judges, councillors, and ministers, because it's the judges who are responsible for the legal proceedings ultimately in the orders that are illegal, and it is the evil councillors who have also collaborated as well in the council chamber, issuing fines of various types and forms as well, and also the ministers who have been unlawfully manipulating the statutory instruments and legislation in breach of our fundamental rights and liberties. But we know they've been doing this because they're even doing it with the jury, what decisions the jury can and can't make. So the driving offences and fines is only now really a part of the bigger picture, and it's an important one because there's many MPs who stand down. There's a lot of MPs who stand down, even Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, but it's very rare you get police chiefs standing down. Very rare. They won't stand down. The police chiefs, I think Peter Fahey did, and they won't give the fines back. The police, unfortunately, are actually more resilient and defiant and more corrupt than the ministers, at least the political parties, though they are responsible for pulling the strings behind the scenes. You get them stepping down a lot more and other ones popping up. But with the police, it's because it's a military-style organisation. They're too proud They operate on a reward and medal system where they're way dangerously proud of their work. They do deal with a lot of dangerous people, criminals, murderers. But so what? If you are corrupt and failing to make things correct, when councils are doing things wrong, and you become corrupt, then you need to admit it. And the more and more and more you deny it, then the more and more corrupt you become. And the police are also dangerous. No one ends up in court in front of a judge unless, they've had a run-in with the police. So most of us stay out of the way of courts and councillors and MPs unless we turn up to vote, unless they're destroying our neighbourhood by knocking buildings down and passing planning permission and, noise from building sites and pulling trees up and things like that, and making us miserable. We don't really have too much to do with them if we can keep out of their way. But the police are the ones in the thick of the action. They like the excitement. They like the adrenaline. They're racing round. They're wrestling people. They're kicking doors down. They're all over this place. But judges, you don't have anything to do with them, really, unless you've had a run-in with the police. So the police are extremely dangerous people. And that's why they need to be under control, really. And when they're corrupt... they don't. We rarely get away with anything. All of the actions against the police are on a case-to-case basis. The rare people who can afford to find the funding or money to have actions against the police and who win these odd cases dotted around, if it was all collaborated together as one body of evidence, it might show more. But then again, refer to Theresa May's Police Federation speech. The police nothing happened because of that. And then Rishi Sunak told them to sort themselves out. Nothing happened because of that. And then whenever we do anything, that call them out through the press or on social media, then they're just staging terrorist incidents. Bang, have some of that. Another car crash, another lethal accident, another... bang, clearly all of these terrorist attacks are done by police, friends, colleagues, undercover police network, 77th Brigade, the Secret Services, Bluetooth car hacks, failing brakes, steering going off, engines shutting down, indicators not working, every trick in the book. Bang, bang, bang. Not every accident, but why is it when every time someone makes a very, very strong challenge to the police, then the response is clear. There is a newspaper incident, whether it's from the police press office or with their newspaper colleagues, anchors and co. It never keeps out the press. And just look at that Kent case, bam! All police motorcycle cameras are banned. Boom! What happens? The next thing, it's the Bulldog Bash motorcycle gathering just up the motorway. It's right at Banbury, just where Teletraffic UK is based. Frank and Paul Garrett. Oh, here's a motorcyclist for you. Bang! Shot in the back of the helmet with a gun. Whoever gets, when there's a gun incident in England, but a motorcyclist shot precisely in the back of a helmet with a gun from a passing car in an exact specific time response to a successful legal challenge in Kent through the courts to scrap these police chiefs' motorbike speed cameras, and what do we get? A precision, targeted aim, laser-like precision shot in the back of a biker's helmet on Banbury, right where Teletraffic UK is, the guy who supplies the cameras and devices. Why are these police chiefs collaborating with the secret services in order to terrorize us bully us and threaten us through widespread newspaper propaganda. Whenever we try and challenge them down, they strike back. Strike us back. Because that's what they do. They're propagandists, terrorists, police terrorists who have got no intention of withdrawing their devices, laying down the sword, laying down their instruments, because they don't want to. They want more and more and more of them. They like this job, chasing around, racing around like idiots all day after criminals. They like it. They're doing their job. They've got a right to upholding the law. Well, only since the police force was invented, because then we were doing it, the public were doing it with our rights. We've got hold of the badge. It's our law. We're upholding the law. Oh, no. You don't want to be doing that. We'll take that job from you. We'll take that job from you. We'll do that. So, it's the old case of a standing army, isn't it? Is the police force now a standing army within England when there is no threat from abroad? And if there is a threat from abroad, is not that the army's job? Or are we now the threat? Are the public now a threat? Now, you're only a threat if you are suspected of a crime. But what the police want to do now is have cameras in every car. You're permanently under suspicion, 24 hours a day, in your house, in your car. You are under permanent suspicion, so they're permanently looking at you. They're permanently filming you. Everything you do, from pick your nose to spit on the floor, and every word you say. So we are now under permanent suspicion of criminality. Now that means that they think that everyone in England's a criminal. So if you need to watch a person 24 hours a day and everything they do, that means you suspect that they are a criminal or are likely to commit a crime. So that means the police chief thinks that every single person in this England is likely to commit a crime or going to. Now, that means that we've got a country of criminals. So does that mean that we all losers vote as well? Does that mean that we all losers vote? We don't have the right to vote because we're all criminals? Who's going to elect the MPs? Well, they'll probably flip a coin for it. These police chiefs have had their day now, and it's game over. It's game over. And then they might say, well, who's going to protect us from this influx of immigration? Well, tough. If you want to pour, Ribena into a glass, so then you can say, the old glass is contaminated, and then give the excuse that, well, you're all criminals now. Now you're all criminals. Are the police a standing army against the people? And if so, if we're all criminals, then that means we don't have a right to vote. So the police chief is going to have to make his mind up whether or not we are all criminals or not. Oh, well, except for the police, of course. No, the police aren't criminals, none of them. They're all commended, awarded officers, decorated. They'll all be getting on the podium and getting a reward for it. Can't have their pride damaged. No. They're not put illegal road signs or give out illegal intended notices of prosecution and force people to confess. We don't need confessions. We've already got them filmed before they've even done it now. We don't need a confession, and we don't need a jury to forgive them either on the basis purely of the opinion of the public. If you get a jury, you'd be lucky for doing 3 points. People have had a jury for far serious matters than that, like putting through the Department of Transport window for £50,000 worth of damage, and they managed to get a jury. Or people putting bank windows through and getting a jury will forgive them, let alone, doing 3 mile an hour over a speed limit and losing the driving licence because they got 6 points. These police chiefs are psychotic. You can't do that job for 5-10 years without gaining some form of psychosis. We need police who are changed often, so they don't end up becoming a political party, a odd cult with a strange language and strange way of speaking. Normal people don't talk like that. Normal people don't talk like the defendant, and it was reasonable doubt to assume that the defendant did or did not on the day of the accused offence did Normal people don't talk like that. It's odd. It's strange. The police need to be changed on a regular basis. Maybe even, you see in America now, they're saying that, all these, they're wanting to get all the immigrants signed up